Today's deliberations, the importance of offtake and aggregation as a way to ensure that the farmers that are served by the hub agri-dealers and the agri-dealers in their network are profitable. We thought, let's bring some colleagues who are involved in that business, in purchasing from small farmers, in purchasing in some instances from agri-dealers and hub agri-dealers. And so the next session that we have is our buyers roundtable. We've had a hub agri-dealer roundtable, a supplier roundtable, and so now we're going to have the buyers roundtable. The moderator from that session is Margaret Mkwenya, who is our country manager from AFAP from Malawi.
After Michael speaks, you have to sort of lower the mic a bit. Firstly, thank you for choosing me over coffee. I truly appreciate. As Michael said, my name is Margaret Mkwena. I'm the country director for Malawi, and it's a pleasure to be facilitating this very important discussion. We've been talking about fertilizer, we've been talking about policy, but at the end of it all was the end game. Food production, commodities, and where do they go? So I'm very pleased to be moderating this session. As I said, more than ever before, there is a big awareness on the need to commercialize smallholder agriculture. In the past, there was a lot of focus on commercial agriculture, working with the bigger commercial farms, but Africa is home to more than 250 million smallholder farmers. And their production has to mean something more than just food security. So it is against this background that we speak of, we have this buyers roundtable to see where does all the food that we are producing go, where do all the commodities go, and what are the different pain points that these buyers face, and what can be done to improve commercialization in Africa. I'm privileged to be coming from Malawi, where we actually have also a Malawi 2063 vision. And pillar one of that vision is commercializing agriculture productivity. So it is for me, it's such a big thing to stand before you and have the speakers that I'm going to shortly call upon. So why? Like I said, we have 250 million smallholder farmers that need to look forward to more than just food security. They need guaranteed incomes. They need predictable security. Like there's a lot of shocks, there's a lot of climatic shocks, financial shocks that are happening, conflicts all over the place. So there must be a way of farmers actually getting guaranteed incomes from their efforts. And it is then my pleasure to introduce 4 speakers that are going to join us on this panel. Firstly, we have Shandini Naidu, the Chief Executive of AVOPort. I'll ask her to limp to the podium. I'll also call upon Dr. Felix Lombe. I'll also call upon Dr. Felix Lombe, my fellow countryman. He is the National Program Coordinator for the Transforming Agriculture Through Diversification and Entrepreneurship. It's called Trade Program. It's funded by IFAD. We'll also hear more about what they are doing in the space, particularly looking at the output market in Malawi. I'm going to be joined by Mpumi Maesela. I hope I'm not butchering your name. I'm even afraid of calling your organization Cervicos Emprev. Mpumi, can you help me? Oh, she's coming. Thank you. Lastly but not least, I'm joined by Dr. Justy Range, the Business Development for Freshmark and ShopRite Holdings. I'm sure with the big footprint that ShopRite has across the continent, we are quite familiar with his organization. So before I've got a million questions for you, but I would want to hear from you. So I'll call upon some of you to share with us. At the end of this session, we're interested to know about the role and value of aggregation, because we just hear these words sometimes and what they mean and what you actually do, which is why we have you here, so that you can explain to us what is the role and value of taking agro-processing. We want to hear particularly from the young ladies that are on this DS, what are the opportunities for women in this segment, in this sector? And lastly, but not least, because this is Hub Agro-Dealer Development Conference, I'm very interested to hear from you in how can we inspire Hub Agro-Dealers to move into the space of taking and aggregation. So without much further ado, I'm going to ask Shanti to limp to this podium and tell us about, where did you come from? She pivoted. We have two pivots on this set. So we'll hear from the first pivot, then we'll move to Felix, who will tell us then more about the trade program. Over to you.
So I'll try. Excuse me, I fell down the stairs yesterday morning and sprained my ankle and still managed to come and surprise Michael. So I'd first like to say thank you to the AFAP team and Michael for extending the invitation to participate and to share insight into my business and my role in the sector within South Africa and the greater Southern Development Community region. So I'm the director of AFAP. I hope I'm going to use this correctly. I'll try and not go through all the slides so that I don't talk forever, because Michael knows we can turn a 45-minute meeting into 3 hours. So basically what AFAP started off as was a platform to connect farmers to the market. And as the name says, we started with avocados, surprise, surprise. For those of you who'd like the presentation, you could use the QR code and you can get it that way. Basically about me, I started off as a trade lawyer, ended up not wanting to be a trade lawyer anymore and moved into the agricultural space. Not only am I the director of AFAP, but I'm a board member at a public entity within South Africa called the NAMC, which is the National Agricultural Marketing Council. I'm the chairperson of 2 national committees that deal with wheat, oilseeds, maize, and nuts. And I'm not going to go through to all the problems that was highlighted today that across the continent are shared. But basically, when we moved into aggregation was after COVID. And during 2021, we had a lot of smallholders farmers approach us and say, we have no access to markets, we have no access to training, we have no access to inputs. And that's when we decided to create the Insights into Africa Rural Research and Development for-profit program that was basically designed to uplift, empower, and create opportunities for small to medium farmers through aggregation programs. And we basically looked at 3 core pillars, which was technology and innovation, market access and insights, and then collaboration with institutions such as AFAP, other public entities, and as well as other private entities. I'll just skip through these. And the innovators' opportunities came to us through entrepreneurs, individuals, and farmers, where we saw that assisting the value chain businesses and producers develop their capacity was critical to sustain growth as well as business profits for us, to build the demand for agricultural products, both local, provincial, and national, into the emerging markets, and then translate those insights into more innovative opportunities and growth prospects. And we looked at a holistic approach. We weren't just looking at making profits, but we were looking at knowledge gains, environmental impacts, social and economic facilities that would help enable these farmers to grow from small to commercial scale. We partner, as I said, with various entities, as agriculture is a very diverse and complex industry, and not one party can do everything by themselves. So we contributed our insights in collaborations with different partnerships to leverage off their resources and develop the program further. So Michael sent me a brief, and I'll try and answer some of the questions that he put in the brief. As a woman, and somewhat youthful still, agricultural sector is still dominated by men, and the barriers to entry and challenges for women far outreach those of men. But agriculture has become more attractive. It's no longer just becoming farmers, it's becoming agripreneurs, thought leaders, market insight creators. And again, agriculture is not for the faint of heart, and it takes patience, perseverance, grit, and a little bit of luck. And from my personal experience, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Hence when I met Michael by chance. And as the industry became more diverse and the awareness around the opportunities became more known, the attractiveness and opportunities became a source of agricultural development and innovation. Long gone are the days where, we have seen it just be, especially for small to medium farmers, an avenue for tribal land or communal land to be subsistence and grow into bigger opportunities and bigger farming systems. And in order for someone to be a successful aggregator or an off-taker in my case, we had to develop a supply chain process that needed to enable and embody an empowering and sustainable system that farmers that could then use and utilize to build their businesses, understand the industry as well as the market demands. One of the key aspects, being a lawyer, that I think farmers needed to understand is the contractual obligations that came with being an off-taker or an aggregator. Understanding economies of scale and how to read the market and understand supply and demand. And by supply and demand, I was also looking at the niche value products, such as counter-season for Europe, products that were used within agro-processing facilities, and build a mutual understanding and collective awareness with our farmers that would be maintained by both the farmers and the aggregator. So what do we seek as off-takers and buyers?
Shanti, on this one, can I make you hold a bit? I also want to hear, then I'll be asking.
Sure.
I'll get, thank you so much. So, Dr. Lombe, Felix, if you can come up and just briefly tell us about the trade program and how it's also helping navigate these issues around,
All right, no, thank you. Would you also allow me to sit? I think the precedence has already been set. So I am from the trade program. Trade is transforming agriculture through diversification and entrepreneurship. It's a government of Malawi program, but funded by the International Fund for Agriculture Development, AFAP, specifically aimed at improving the sustainable livelihoods of rural people in Malawi through commercialization of smallholder agriculture. In that respect, we work with the farmers who are producers, but we also work with the non-farm actors, agro-dealers, and other entities. As a program that is aimed at strengthening value chains, our key focus is on how these farmers are integrated in different value chains, because our interest is to ensure that they participate in profitable markets. Our methodology is that of facilitating win-win partnerships between smallholder farmers and different entities, the private sector in particular. And I think it is in that respect that we have a lot of private players, off-takers in particular, other input suppliers who we are interested to seeing to it that they are working very closely with our smallholder farmers. Currently, we are in almost half of the entire country, and we could expand. We could expand to more districts. Our model, and I think this is also what I was asked to share, because our interest, as I earlier indicated, is ensuring that there is sustainable access to markets on the part of our producers or smallholder farmers. Something that has been linking sustainability is a key word, and we look up to different off-takers that can work with our smallholder farmers on predictable terms for some long period of time in the value chains that we are promoting. Now, our observation, and these are our preferences, looking at the nature of our smallholder farmers that we've been working with, is basically a crop of off-takers that would exhibit some of the following features that I'm just going to mention, because we believe that they have the capacity to uplift our smallholder farmers to leapfrog into sustainable commercial farming. Number one, we consider volume, the ability to offtake, large volumes as a very key ingredient in the relationship that should be there between the off-takers and the farmers. For a simple reason that the only way farmers would be incentivized to produce more is when there is an indication of demand on the outer end. So ability to offtake good volumes is something that we consider, but also ability to offer signals in terms of certainty. Farmers don't like a market that is available this year, next year is not available, the other year it changes. So there has to be a little bit of continuity and certainty. Farmers would also want an off-taker that is able to guarantee them in terms of their ability or in terms of their search for input, fertilizers, seed, and the like. The model that the government of Malawi is promoting is where you have got suppliers of different inputs. In between, you have off-takers guaranteeing that you can supply to these cooperatives, and thereafter we are going to remit the proceeds of their sales in paying back. Beyond the ability to guarantee, we also look at off-takers that are able to provide extension services. This is very important because currently in Malawi, an extension worker, public extension worker, saves around 3,500, 4,000 farmers, as opposed to one extension worker saving 200 farmers. Now, there will never be a time when we will have enough public extension workers in Malawi. And therefore, we look up to off-takers as also another bridge. And this is something which we know that different partners, including AFAP, has piloted. It has worked extremely well in our regard. So these are some of the features that we have explored and have seen to be extremely crucial in as far as nurturing a sustainable relationship between smallholder farmers and off-takers and other players is concerned. Let me stop there. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Felix. Now I move on to the other glass ceiling breaker. Mpumi, I don't know if you want to continue the trend or you want to come up here.
Your call, your instruction.
Come up here, I take your set. Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I always dread afternoon sessions because people want to sleep or it's been a long day, so I hope you find what I'll be sharing with you interesting. But the long and short of it, copy and paste and make bold what he just said. That's what we do. My name is Mpumi Maisela. I'm from a company called Servicios Empresariales Holdings. It's in South Africa. It is Spanish. What we do is aggregation, but I'm an off-taker today. I do have slides if they will come up, but if they don't come up, it's also fine. So I'm just gonna share a story of how we work, and I'm gonna paint in my mind the business canvas that I was gonna take you through. So our main client that we actually started working with is the mining companies. So we work with the mining companies, we do rehabilitation work, that's what the business does, and we use agriculture and agro-value chain to do that. And so because of that, we participate across the entire agri-value chain or agri-services or agri-products, if I were to call it that. We plant from trees to bees. That's what we call ourselves. If we go into a site, I'm making an example, and we find that we can't plant anything edible, we will plant trees to extract the acid from the soil, and these trees, they still go to Sapi to make us furniture. The mining company is happy. We've empowered the community, created jobs to cut the trees, clean the trees, etc. Plus, we add the bees in the mix. So that's the model that we have. So our main client is our mining company. They are chasing carbon offsets, they are chasing carbon offtakes and carbon sequestration. And we are the agri-experts who are supporting them create a secondary economy within their mining communities. If you've been to South Africa, you will know we've got a few mining companies, and they are highly regulated around ensuring that the communities are sustainable beyond the life of mine. And so what we do, we go out in the communities and understand what they are doing in terms of agri-activities, because it has the lowest barrier to skills. And generally you'll find that the mining company and the community in and around the mining company, the second most natural activity that the community would be comfortable to be exploring is agriculture. And so that's how we came about. It's a long story, so I'll really try and cut it short how we got here, but I'm just gonna explain the bits and pieces of the business. So because we do all this, we've had to define the market or the offtakes for us to be able to make it sustainable, because the mining companies is chasing sustainability, creating a secondary economy. So we go out to the likes of Tiger Brands, AB InBev, Daybreak, the entire spectrum of food, beverage, livestock, all the off-takers. We engage them and they give us the off-takes. They do give us really huge off-takes because we are also managing really mega projects within those communities. Just one mining company could be managing between 3 to 10,000 hectares, depending on what we are doing there. It could be livestock, it could be grains, it could be beans, it could be anything that we have in our book as the off-take opportunity. As we were doing this, what we learned that is the farmers generally need a lot of things. And we talk about a lot of things, and here today we've spoken about a lot of things that the farmers require to succeed and to be sustainable. In our little spaces, what we've learned or what we've tried to define is non-negotiables and negotiables. Negotiables are things that the farmer should have, and if they do not have these things, they will not be sustainable. Someone earlier on put up a slide and said something about the farms or the land, we have borrowed it from our children. And so we look at what we are doing in terms of sustaining the soil or the environment that it can be used for generations to come. And so what we've been doing in terms of defining the non-negotiables, it's saying what are the things that are currently affecting the farmers the most. All of us have spoken about it, from climate change to increasing prices of fertilizers, to creating jobs for the youth, to making agriculture sexy. I think that we've tried, me and Shadini are trying to do that, right? Okay, thank you for the slides. So I think the slides came in, I can leave? Oh, okay, so I'll probably literally just run through it. So yes, we are called aggregators. For farmers, I think we're problem solvers. Whatever the problem the farmer has, we solve for it. And so what initially we thought the farmers needed the market, and now we have markets coming out of our ears. You see it on the next slide. We know that the farmers do not actually necessarily need the market, but they need to comply to fulfill the market. It's another story for another day to unpack. Okay, cool, thanks. And so we've done all that and understood what will they take, etc. And that has led us to saying, what are then the non-negotiables? If you're a smallholder farmer, you are not going to get bigger land, at least in South Africa. So we're saying, how then do we make you sustainable in your own small space? What can you plant? What is high yield, high value crop, that can give you the margins that you require to sustain your livelihood? And so we're looking at things, with Unilever, we do things like spices, macro herbs, etc. So we look at your own space to how to optimize it. But also with the bigger guys, the biggest issue being mechanization, because we're solving for the problem. We realized that the farmers were not giving us the produce on time, so we went and bought over 100 million worth of machines. So again, machines are possibly the problem to an extent, because the 100 million rand machines don't even start to scratch the surface for our farmers that we need to support. That's just the value-adding opportunities that we have, and our partners, I'll be able to share with you offline if you'd like to know more about that, and the support that we then provide. We're very much on the ground. We believe fertilizer is your feet. You need to be there and walk the fields and check that cattle every day to know if it's doing well so that you can react to it. So it's a very busy slide, but I took you through this whilst we were waiting for the slides to come up, right? So our customer, we're reading from the left coming this way. Our customers are the mining guys, food and bev, we do pharmaceuticals. So the saline that goes into your drip when you're in hospital, that comes from the maize that we plant, which is non-GMO, things like that, and the impact investors. We've become affiliated with those interesting names. We still need to mine those opportunities. But to come forward in terms of our value proposition, we very much work on the demand. You know, like you have a supply push. For us, it's a demand pull. So we follow our client in terms of what they need, and that's what we source and support the farmers. Of course, within the biomes in the region. So if, for example, Malawi has very good groundnuts and very good beans, so we will source from Malawi if we had the opportunity to do so. The key resources is partnerships, so we wouldn't be able to do this. We are very young. I call my team cubs because they literally just like run with it. So we're very strong on partnerships and collaborations, and the mechanization makes a whole lot of difference for us to plant on time with our farmers, to harvest on time, and to take our crop to different silos. And just having the importers and importers certifications help us to start the conversations and extend the invitation to the farmers within the region that would like us to be sourcing from them. Yeah, so the rest I think I covered. It just talks to the network of partners that we've been working with, from input partners, offtake partners, funders, technical partners, etc. Just to give color around the book, I don't know how much is this in dollars. I haven't converted it in my head, but we currently have just over 2 billion worth of offtakes. That's just on the grains. We've not included livestock, we've not included poultry that we can take. And we basically work with the farmers in South Africa and hoping to extend these offtakes and these opportunities that we've already secured to the rest of the region. yeah, it's a busy slide. You can grab me. At the bottom, we're just talking about what then, why we different from maybe the other aggregators who are just maybe on agriculture. We very much like environmentalists, but using food and following the science. So I really like what AFAP is doing with regards to the soil nutrition and looking at the future of it and soil health and things like that, because for us, that's the main thing. For our pollination, we're using our bees that we have in the farm. So when we need to do certain things, we are trying very much to see how we use what is already in the environment to do that, and you still get paid for it. So yeah, so basically that's who we are. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mpumi. So now I'll turn over to Justy. I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, I've got some pictures.
Okay, sure, fantastic. Yeah, so Justy, like I said, is coming from ShopRite. Personally, my kids used to love your shop. They thought it was an outing. So very interested to hear what you have to share.
Hello, colleagues. I feel truly blessed to be in this lovely country, amongst lovely people, and to discuss a lovely subject, which is agriculture. What I want to do, what I want to achieve with the next 5 or 6 minutes is, when you walk out of here, I want you to think differently about the whole offtake space, where it fits in conceptually into value chains, and why it is so important. And I'll start off with a simple example. Let's say I want to create a dress, right? I'm going to design the dress in my backyard, and then I'm going to bring it to Shanti. How successful do you think I'm going to be in getting her to offtake my dress? Very successful. I'm going to get 0, right? Because I haven't asked the customer. I didn't pay attention to the customer. And effectively, that is what offtake is when you look at offtake. It's somebody needs to give you money for something, right? And if you don't pay attention to that, if you're not sensitive to that, you ultimately lose the race. Pretty much the story today, and if you remember nothing else, please remember the name Christine, because this is a story about Christine. She's a typical profile woman farmer just outside of Lusaka on the Great North Road. When we visited her there, she had 15,000 tomato plants in the ground. She runs the nursery for the whole community. She's like the mother hen. You know, all the neighboring farmers come to her. And on paper, she should be an extremely successful grower. What do you think is her problem? She can't sell her product. She does not have the ability to grow past that glass ceiling because she's 60 kilometers outside of Lusaka. Yes, she will deliver to ShopRite. Yes, she will have a spa. Yes, she will have Pick and Pay. But the rest of her product, she either needs to sell next to the side of the road or take it to the Soweto market in town. Right. So, but remember the story. It will become apparent when we go forward. Right. So, I'm going to make a couple of points that I want us to just later go back to. Sorry, I'm first understand your program here. Okay, so we have to solve the problem of market access for emerging growers. That's our challenge going forward. And without us fixing without us structuring market access, we cannot industrialize Africa's agricultural sector. And that is my main message to you. If we don't close the loop between production and consumption, between production and how things progress, we will not consume, we will not solve industrialization. See the broad. This thing is running. It mustn't be running. Just stop it. Did I press a button? Oh, no, but this is not a forward-backward thing. I think it's playing the slideshow automatic. It's running automatically. If you can just pause it after every slide. All right. So without the structuring of our value chains, we will not be able to industrialize agriculture. Why do I say so? It's because we've had, specifically in South Africa, we've got a lovely case study of how a government over time structured its value chains to such an extent that all the value chains, all the different marketing channels for a supplier was developed to a point where it functioned extremely well. That included your production finance, your agricultural research council that provided new varieties. It included your export channel. It included your local retail. And most importantly, it also created a segment where the typical informal product goes through structured markets. You can go to the next slide, please. Typically, so they covered all the bases around that. When we talk about food security, let's think not only about technology, let's think about the people in the process, let's think about the product, and there's a silent P in here. Who of you can guess what that P is? It's politics, right? So people, process, politics, and technology, right? Technology, and we like to talk about technology first, but technology really should be the last thing that we think about, because specifically horticulture is a hard environment, it's physical, etc. You can go to the next slide, please. It's a physical environment. Can I press here? What button do I press? The blue? Okay. I'm just kidding. Okay. The third principle is we need to think about the value changes in a 360 manner. Agriculture, we kind of plant things, and then when it's ripe, we try and sell it, right? Whereas a value chain to work it pulls product, and that's the role of offtake. Offtake should be pulling the product through. How does it do that? It's by creating, and I think Jonathan mentioned the word a feedback loop, is by creating signals that goes back to your production. What do I mean by that? Is how to package your product, how to label it, how to send it, etc. So, but if your value chain does not work, then what happens? We break the connections, and that's the story of specifically horticultural value chains on the continent. It's because we're not thinking end to end with the product flow that we get a broken value chain. And the value chain is a very simple thing. You make stuff, you add value, and you sell it. Think about it. Doesn't matter what product is. So a 360 view is essential. The next slide, please. A 360 view is absolutely essential. And remember that the links work together. So as far as your Agro-Dealer initiative is concerned, it works very well because your fertilizer goes down, gets distributed into the right to your clients. But on the reverse, we need to think about how that product gets pulled back to consumption in a structured way, because it's both sides of the same coin. You can go to the next slide. I don't know if you... Oh, I press it. Right. The third one is quickly, we have to fix local, and that's my proposal, is we always think export, we think national, and we think regional when we talk about offtake. But we need to fix local. Why? Because Christine needs to be able to sell her product within a 60-kilometer radius through a structured environment where she gets a competitive price, a transparent price, which allows her to grow. Right? You're talking about the 200 million, 250 million growers on this continent that produces product in challenging environments, right? But are able to produce a massive amount of product. Imagine that if we can just up the value of that product that's produced by 5 or 10% on the same production cost base. Can you imagine what the impact could be on the continent? And that's my point. When we think about the offtake environment, we typically want to jump to exports, we want to jump to the big ticket things, but we're missing a trick here, and that is our local value chains. If we talk about food security, that's where the trick lies, in strengthening food security. And that's why we've got such a narrow, if you look at the basket that's consumed in countries, it's so narrow from a product point of view as well as from a nutritional point of view. So if we want to strengthen food security, it doesn't help we plant product that we export. That's not food security. It doesn't help that we've got chili plants that we grow, make powder, and it goes to Germany. That's not food security. Food security is we need to strengthen our local environments. I'm going to run through some pictures. I want you to look at the quality of this product. This is in Kampala, Takasero market, when I was there last year. Look at the quality of that product. Look at those peppers. You can shave yourself by looking in that brinjal. That's how shiny and fresh that product is, right? That product will be a first-grade product if it was selling in Johannesburg market. But can you see where it's being sold, right? Can you see how the environment is pushing back against the growers that are marketing there? This is on the Tuesday market in Lusaka. Again, can you see the quality of the product? We don't have a quality problem as far as our value chains are concerned. The growers produce excellent product. It's just when we sell it, we're letting people down. Now, that same product in the retailer's shelf, this is also Lusaka. Oh, no, this is Kampala. If you look at that product, it's the same product, just packaged differently. And immediately it's exposed to a different type of market. So imagine you're a housewife, you're a mid-LSM, mid-income person. You don't want to go to the market to go and buy a product, the same product, but because you package and present it differently, because you listen to your customer about how he wants to buy his product, suddenly it speaks to a higher spend on your product. Again, this is in Zambia. Can you see the packaging here? Now this Clan Leslie, Maluti, Pink Lady, those are all South African brands, right? And they're being sold in Zambia. They came from South Africa and they're being packaged there, and that's going into the Congo, right? But you can see, because it's packaged right, the difference between the local product that's competing with product like this. It's just because it's presented right, because you listen to your customer, a standard box, etc. This is also, look at the product, beautiful product, but it's not sorted and graded. Those jam tomatoes at the bottom, they're all over the space. But again, because of the circumstances, there's no need to grade and update. This is in the Nairobi, the Mukushi market, the biggest horticultural market in Nairobi. But again, you can see how the product, there's structure there, there's grading happening there, but it's not done in a conducive environment. This is Joburg market. This is an emerging farmer, the same farmer that would to Kampala send his tomatoes. But can you see there's structure around our tomato? There's thinking about the offtake. The offtake, when I'm as an offtaker walking to that tomato, he's not going to get a good price because he hasn't sorted and graded the tomatoes, but it's a standard box size. You see how the difference is when you think about it. This is Cape Town market. Can you see this is jumbo apples? These apples would never reach a retailer. It would have typically gone to an informal market in any other country. In South Africa, that goes into a standard container, which means that grower gets a better price. And you can see it's cheap packaging. It's not expensive stuff. It's basic thing. In South Africa, again, this is East London market. Can you see that product? It's not fancy packaged, but each one of those parcels have got a unique number, and the system tracks and traces it on our markets to be able to tell that farmer exactly what he got for his product. But again, can you see quality-wise it's the same, but the environment in which we sell the product is different, meaning that there's a whole bunch of scale benefits that flows back to the growers. This for me is always the best example, spinach, which is a horrible product to sell and a horrible product to treat. But can you see there, that's fresh spinach, it came in, but it's going to be sold at a competitive price. That's not a bad price to get for your spinach. But if that was sold in a different environment, it would not look the same, etc., etc. The point is, from an offtake point of view, these ladies have come to the market, they've looked at the product, and you see they've bought what they wanted. From a food security point of view, they had access to graded product, it's packaged right, it's in a good environment. Immediately, from a market point of view, that's why the markets contribute to food security. This is Johannesburg market. You can see the parcel, the basket that the buyer bought, a range of product, high-value product. There's peppers. You can see it's the same quality peppers. There's your leafy greens, your potatoes, and then your spinach. But can you see the difference between the pictures, the contrast? If we don't sell our products in the right environments, we get a completely different. And the outcome of how South Africa's agriculture looks at the moment is a testament to that system. The thinking of that informal, like I say, the localized market, to be able to grade product like this. These are potatoes. I don't know if you're aware, but I think in South Africa we're running at 80 or 60 different varieties of potatoes, right, that are all graded and sized and sorted like this on different things. All sold in an environment that's cashless and easy accessible to people. This picture, I'm just going to speak about the the conversation around here about the hubs. So this is Philippi in Cape Town. We're busy with the proof of concept there. And the whole idea is to create the offtake environment that doesn't only speak just to the product. So at the top, you've got your market facilities. You can see the solar powers, etc. But then you've also got the circular economy going, the organic compost that's being made from the organic waste from the city that comes to the facility. It gets, goes through the machines that kills the bacteria. But the output from this is organic. I'm showing this because it's got, when we think about our, in your case, the dealer environment where the infrastructure is, it's important to think on the offtake environment, not just around the product, but how does the spaces, how does the building speak to the different elements. These are just pictures, and you can please engage with me of how we, from a spatial point of view, put together the facilities to speak to the offtake environment, because it's not just about the product, it's about the support services. This is the Lesotho market, Maluti Fresh Produce Market, another example of when you just tweak it a bit. We implemented this 2 years ago, and you can see immediately the grading has improved. And those are all local product. That's the Maluti, the biggest potato farmer in there. Governments are struggling with this. This is when I was in the DRC. Governments are struggling with this exact same problem all over this continent. And my plea to you is, let's look differently at the offtake environment. We've done a huge amount of empirical work over the last 4 years around exactly solving how that offtake comes together so that it supports the grower on the outbound side, but then also in your case, and what's lovely about the AFAP model, it supports the inbound production facility. This is Angola, same story. My point here is just you can't just build buildings, be careful. You have to think about the processes internally. So hopefully I've put some pins in your board around we have to industrialize correctly. If we want to industrialize, we have to structure our markets and our value chains correctly. We have to think local. We have to think 360, and please remember Christine. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. I was busy because all four of you have really given us a lot to think about, but I've got, like I said, a dozen questions. The first one really is around the issue of compliance. I think Mpumi already alluded to something to do with, how do you ensure what the farmers are bringing in is what you are expecting, and then what happens? What kind of agreements do you have with these farmers? So if you can just quickly share your experiences.
Okay, thank you so much. So the markets that SE serve is a formal market. Like I said, we're supplying the pharmaceutical companies, we're supplying the food and bev companies, and therefore they have very high standards with regards to the products that they would take. They will normally have a specification of the product, what it should look like, and what external elements it can have. But in particular for the majority of farmers, which is women, you'll find that they are doing vegetables. With vegetables or cash crops, we do global gap. Global gap allows for the farmer to not just only sell within their region, and don't get me wrong, localization is important. But when I've seen butternut, tumbles of butternut sitting with no market, and we could not help, and we needed the butternut because the butternut did not fit the specification. So knowing those specifications, being able to do your minimum residue levels on the crop, checking your chemicals that you sprayed, checking the fertilizer, following the spraying program that they would have provided, and at the end, before even submitting, going for a test of whatever outside elements that your product should have. I mean, it gets complicated. It starts getting to sugar levels for fruits, for example. Sugar levels, we have to test sugar levels, we have to check the starch content of the fruit. So there's a lot of compliance that farmers, especially smallholder farmers, cannot afford. These are non-negotiables. These are things that if you don't have that, you will not be able to sell to a formalized market unless you have an aggregator who is doing all these checks on your behalf to ensure that your product at the end has a chance of it being taken to a formal market.
All right, thank you so much. Quickly building on that, Felix, I liked the example just shared with Christina. And I'm saying that because we've got a lot of Christinas in Malawi. Amazing farmers with a lot of beautiful product, but they're farmed and they don't have market. So from your program, for instance, can you share how you have been able to navigate that challenge and make sure that we reduce the Christinas?
Thank you so much. I think the starting point was already presented. The specifications of what customers basically are looking for. What we have in Malawi, and trade is working in the legume sector. We are also into potato. There are a lot of specifications when it comes to the end users, depending on whether it's in the city or it's in the rural areas. And increasingly, because of what has earlier been presented, we have now come to realize that the best is to appreciate that the market is segmented in terms of the end users, and it should be approached in that angle or from that front, whereby you are able to front the products that you want off-takers to help you with by looking at who wants what, and the whole issue of packaging. I would want to invite the delegates here to sample some of the products that one of our off-takers is also able to to sell. Issues of quality packaging. These are not only done by medium-scale off-takers, but even smallholder farmers, because it would appear that there is another level of off-taking that has to be done in between, and most of our medium-scale farmers are able to fill in that gap even before they front load the produce or the products to other players. But I had earlier hinted that sometimes the ability to produce what the market would want is determined by the amount of input that is going into that particular product. And sometimes farmers on their own may not be in a position to do that. It should be the role, to an extent, of that particular off-taker to come in and perhaps help in ensuring that farmers have got access to quality inputs that would also translate into quality products. I think that's something that, it takes a bit of time. The whole issues, the whole issue of trust that has to be somehow cultivated along the way. But it would be important that if we want to come up with quality products, either horticulture or the grains, there has to be a proper investment into the input chain itself on the part of smallholder farmers. And we believe that that is also something which our off-takers should be in a position to intervene. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Felix. And again, I'll extend the invitation. Felix, through the trade program funded by IFAD, brought in an off-taker from Malawi. She has showcasing some of her products. And it's interesting how she, like visitor, you'll see how she works with the input suppliers to ensure that at the end of the day, the product specification meets the needs of the market. Now, that's Elizabeth. It's a female-run institution. And now moving to my gender, very burning questions. Both, I'll start with Shanti. What advice, based on your experiences, would you give to women who are interested in entering this space?
It's an open-ended question there. I would say to women entering this space, especially since it is a male-dominated space, but looking at the crowd today, you can see we're almost a 50-50 split, so it is changing. One thing I would say to them, as I mentioned in my presentation, I didn't come from farming. I actually worked at Exaro in their legal department and ended up in their rehabilitation programs for the mines, and that's how Avaport actually was started through that whole discussion. So I would say to women, be daring, also be overly prepared. And for me, having bridged the gap successfully between private sector and public sector and being on the policy side as well as on the business side, you have to be in a constant learning mindset. And I think, Pumi, you and I have been in that space where you have to wear every single hat across the board. So for women and youth who are wanting to come into this space, it is intimidating, but it is doable. And I would say be concrete in your decision making and understand where you are going. It's never going to go according to plan, so always be open to your options and just follow your path. And as I said, for me, I went from mining to law to agriculture and then into national government level. So I never thought I would be there, but that's how the agricultural space works.
Thank you. And so both these young ladies were at WITS, so there must be something that's happening at WITS. So Pumi, what's your advice to women, particularly women who are already in the sector, like, you saw the hub agro-dealers. What's your advice to them if they want to enter into the space?
Maybe I could share how I got into the space, and then maybe from that you could see how you find your way around it as well. So I got into aggregation in 2008 during the global crisis. At the time where I worked, we were supporting rural women, and we had to find solutions for women. But my background is fund management. I'm a banker. So I was like, I'm not gonna lend to farmers and they don't have a market. But then I was like, hang on, do they even know what they need to do? So at the time, as a fund manager at my previous employer, I defined all the partners I need to de-risk the funding that we needed to extend to women. Little did I know that I was aggregating at that time. So we had 98% repayment rates. We funded the women farmers only. So again, something to plant, women farmers pay better. They are more responsible, so you just should know that. And so it helped. That created a good track record for me to start a business in 2014. I had 67 farmers that I had supported in 2008 who had the market, who were planting, and who were self-sustaining. So I already had a track record, and that track record allowed me to pitch secondary economies to mines and to say, how do we support the communities in the mines to thrive? And that's how I got into the aggregation. So I hope that helps. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. I'm coming to the close, but I don't know if there are any burning questions from the floor. Maybe I can take one or two. I have one to the hubs. that are interested in, just maybe by show of hands, which hubs are also into off-taking, just by show of hands? Okay, there's one over there. There's one over there. Oh, okay, there's quite a number. What would be, okay, yeah, what would be your advice?
And just one thing, and I think this is important to reiterate, is that when you use the word aggregation, and the principle is, if you don't aggregate right, you don't create economies of scale. So the lesson is, and I'll stick to the avocado theme, Africado in Uganda, they don't sell any avocados locally. They grow them, they've got a pack house, Europe cap, all of that, and it goes straight out. But think about the Christines. They can't aggregate, so they don't have the economies of scale. And that's the interesting lesson, that if we aggregate right, and remember, compliance is always on a spectrum, right? And compliance is dictated to by your customer, right? Your local customer in town doesn't have to have Europe gap, right? That's the point. So these smaller growers need to have market access that allows them to share in the economies of scale that aggregation brings, in a way that it gets pushed back to them. Because typically the intermediaries, and that's why these informal markets are so exploitative, because they absorb the economies of scale. They absorb it, and then they create that typical information asymmetry which pushes the small guy out. And that's the theme, I think. So aggregation is not just aggregation of products, but it's also the aggregation of services. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to think like that when you think about offtake. We use the word offtake. Underlying offtake, there's always aggregation, and that needs to be structured.
Fantastic. And you had something, but yes?
Just to bench on what you've presented and what you said, with our aggregation system, we don't look to what our farmers are planting. We look at the market insight, and that's what we base our transactions on. So all the market insight we get from agro-processors, formal retail chains, that is what we did through the Insights into Africa program, is where we told our farmers what to plant, who to plant for, and that's how we started identifying the weaknesses with the GAP accreditation, Global GAP, SA GAP. And I always drive this even at the policy level. I say market insight drives market access and keeps that access sustainable for farmers. So when you have the right market insight, that translates into long-term profitability for farmers, growth and development. And it's sort of a back-to-front approach, but that's the approach that's worked for us in our aggregation.
And that's so important that you mentioned that now. And sorry about this, but I think we need to make the distinctions when unpack what offtake is. That is typical, that single channel offtake, because what you just said is your clients. Again, the customer dictates that, and that you push backwards into your supply chain to production side. I think we must be careful when we talk about food security and specifically feeding cities. That model needs to be swung around. And that's the lesson, I think, from South Africa, is that by swinging it around, creating facilities that's deliberately provides low-risk access for small growers, but providing the aggregation makes it a multidimensional aggregation environment. But, and hence my point about the local, is because we think backwards. We want to vertically, horizontally integrate backwards. But that's not going to solve our food security problem from an offtake point of view. We need to think about how we sell product into the local environment in a structured way. But yeah, that's exactly, I'm glad you mentioned that. Thanks.
All right. I think we have now come to the end. This was clearly a very interesting, like I said earlier, all the inputs, all the policy, as long as it does not lead to increased productivity, feeding into what the buyers want, it's for naught. So thank you so much for everyone who's been on this panel. It looks like we are going to have to continue this discussion offline, but I would really want to thank you. Have a good evening. Yeah.
Another round of applause also for Margaret and her facilitation. I definitely think that these last two panels were the right ones to put after lunch, because although we lost a few people, we had a lot of people stay with us to hear about how Hub Agro-Dealers see their needs and their role, and then also this new area, and I won't say it's totally new because there are a number of you involved in offtake and aggregation, but the value of this is that this is the pull factor. It is linking your clients, who are smallholder farmers, to markets, to buyers. And so there are a lot of conversations I think we could have about food. And if we're producing the inputs that are being sold lead to food, then where? Because at the end of this session, we started talking about food security and local food supply, but we're also in an unprecedented era because of the African Continental Free Trade Area of regional and continental supply opportunity. And so food becomes food security, but also becomes wealth creation. And these are some of the dialogues that, at least at AFAP, we have agribusiness in our name. For the first 10 years or so, we focused on fertilizer, which is the science of it and how do you get the yields, et cetera. But at the end of the day, it's not just about using the product, whether it's organic or inorganic. It's producing a food product. And that food product, as we've seen from this last session, should have a market. And what is happening increasingly is you do get signals from the market of what buyers want to buy. And even if that's not all that's produced, if there's a consistent component of that in a smallholder farmer's farm, they will have the revenue to continue using better inputs, they'll have the focus of mind to use better farming practices, and that's in the best interest of really everyone in the room. So we definitely will continue this conversation, as Margaret alluded to. At this juncture, I want to say that we've come to the end of the formal program for today, save for our reception, where we would like you to be able to mix and mingle and have some refreshments. Tomorrow morning, though, we start quite early again for definitely, we hope, the women who are involved in the input sector would join us. But as well, if your institution supports inclusion and women in development, we would like to have you, women in inputs, we'd like to have you join us. That breakfast will be downstairs. We went to eat lunch on the lower level from this. There's another set of smaller conference rooms where we will have our breakout sessions tomorrow. At the stairwell just across from where you registered, you'll see a sign that says breakaways downstairs. That's where we will have the breakfast at 7:30 until 8:45, and then we will commence our program at 9 tomorrow morning. So I hope everyone, I know it was a bit of a long day and we had quite a bit of information shared, but I hope you all found it to be a rewarding and informative day. Again, we greatly appreciate your presence, look forward to engaging with you over the next few days, and we wish you a good afternoon and evening, and please share some time with us at the reception. Thank you.
I touch you so gently, so you can see me clearly. Sunshine's coming early, try to stay by the breeze, but the sunshine is a calling, so hold on to the sun. Zuba, zuba, yeah, man. Na, 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 na. Zuba, zuba, yeah,